everybody, I'm Ike.
Hey guys, this is Dylan from Flipside Music. I'm here today with Jake.
How's it going?
If you guys haven't been in the shop recently, he's our newest guy on hand here.
Other than Ziggy.
And he's our media manager / professional knob spotter.
Yes, I'm so lucky to have earned that title.
Yeah, it's the best moniker so far.
Yeah.
When we go to the NAMM show, I think Nico's purveyor of fine reverb. You'll be a professional knob spotter.
The accolades.
Yeah.
These are the benefits of work.
MJ's still just a kid.
We got 6 questions.
Yeah, so we'll just roll into these today. I'll start with the first one. I'll read it, and then if you want to start with the answer.
Cool.
First one's from Neophyte Builder. Why don't more guitar players play in stereo?
I think most of them, I don't know. I think guitar players are simple creatures for the most part.
Yes.
And I think stereo isn't even kind of on people's radars for the most part, just as an option for what they could have.
Yes. Well, yeah, I think I would say intimidation by the gear, or by the gear that's necessary to do it and to do it well.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing too, is you get into if you do any research into stereo rigs, the first thing you'll find is the constant war of, is it actually stereo or are you just running in dual mono?
Yeah.
And that's trying to get the true stereo format can be quite a quest.
Mm-hmm. But I also think it's practical with no one wants to carry 2 amps, especially if you're playing a punk rock or a rock and roll gig at some tiny little bar. No one wants to be hauling in 2 separate amps that weigh 10,000 pounds, because then you look like the knob that's bringing both of them in. But
it's one of those things too. Yeah, because I feel a lot of pro level guys that obviously have that stuff managed for them tend to always be able to bring that stuff. And because I was gonna say, there's a lot of famous guitar players, when I think of them, they all played stereo. I mean, even Stevie Ray, was using stereo rigs pretty much as often as possible. Because stereo, if you've never tried it, you got to try a stereo, because it's kind of addicting. It's one of those things, as a guitar player. Well, I mean, to me, it's the same difference of when you hear the old mono records versus hearing it in stereo.
Yeah.
It's it really is that. Thing. It's the same level of difference. It's just for your guitar sound. So.
Yeah. And I always felt the reason I never really got into it was I'm not doing any crazy modulation or reverby thing that I want ping pong going back and forth and stuff. But I think eventually you start thinking about this amp does something really good. What if we just added another amp to fill in the other bits?
Yeah, that's my favorite use of stereo too. Yeah. If I had to pick, because I think it's fine if you have 2 of the same thing. It sort of works, but I think the real fun of stereo is taking one amp, especially one amp that has great distortion on its own, and then pairing it with a clean amp that you're running a lot of other pedals with, because all those 2 will fill in each other's deficits, and that's to me, that's by far my favorite way to. But yes,
in that sense, I feel bass players are way ahead of the game, because so many people are running dual amp things, and
or even running out to the house and running their amp.
Exactly. And so I gotta give them props for that.
Yeah, but I think we're agreed. It's the gear factor.
Yeah, for the most part.
Yeah,
we're all broke anyway.
Yes.
Question number 2 from Lester Polonius. I hope that I said that okay. Worst pedal you've ever tried?
I'm going to be not really mean, but I feel I'm going to be mean on this one. Yeah. So, to me, it's the Paul Gilbert one from JHS.
Oh, really?
Yeah. After we were thinking about, after I thought about it a little longer, that one, I really expected a lot more from that pedal. And I'm going to go ahead and say I pretty much put it through everything I could think of that I would run it for. And I could not get, me and Nico tried it all day one day, and then we gave it, we came back the next week and tried it again through as many amps as we could in the shop, and I could not get, it does it works for Paul Gilbert, obviously, but it does not work for me, or at least for Nico either. But yeah, that one, I wanted it to be good, and I'll be honest, everything we played, it made everything sound worse. So yeah, it's that's the only one. I love that pedal brand, but that's the only one I gotta say, so far, really disappointed me from them.
I'm surprised that Nico also had trouble, because you guys are very different kinds of guitar players. He does a lot of you can just throughout the speakers, but Nico is very tactile and everything. So I'm surprised he wasn't able to.
Well, we kept both using it too, because it seems like a pedal that would be up both of our alleys. Really, it's a very textural overdrive. So for both of us, like it should have fit somewhere, but
And you can get fuzz and stuff out of it too. Right?
yes,
Or
yeah.
that's
Well,
what
it's
they
kind
say.
of like a really hard clipping, yeah. And so that's what was weird about it though, was like every setting we tried, just really put a blanket on things and really kind of it was just very strange. Like we tried it because at first we tried it through amps that we're more familiar with, like Revs and Mesas. Didn't bond with those, so then we started thinking, well, maybe it's just a Marshall thing. You got to throw it through a Marshall and do the Paul Gilbert thing, and still didn't quite hit the spot. But like Paul Gilbert makes it sound amazing, so I guess it works for him. But.
I guess the biggest question I had when that came out was like Marshalls are already really saturated, very full on the front end. That I feel like if I plugged that in, I would just squash everything out.
Well, and that's kind of what it did. Like it got way too much, and it's like I'm not sure for him if maybe he's somebody that really rides the volume knob.
Maybe.
But yeah, I don't know. What's your worst pedal?
You have a better answer than I did. I remember a couple years ago we were trying out some cheapo Behringer pedals, which is not to denigrate cheap pedals. My reverb is like a $40 digital thing.
Yeah.
But, we had the Behringer. It's like the Big Muff knockoff, the Behringer.
Oh yeah, the VT99 or something, or
something like that.
Yeah.
There was one next to it that was almost as bad, called like the Vintage Tube Monster.
Yeah.
But it was it sounded like you had hooked up that amp like 3 doors down and closed every door between and put a blanket over it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just all flub.
Yeah, it was not good in any way. That's definitely the worst. Might be just the worst tone in general that I've heard. But that pedal was absolutely unusable. But a lot of that.
It's funny that we both went for like drives and or distortion type pedals.
I feel like it's easier to be picky about drive stuff than it is.
Well, there's more of them, but there's a lot. At this point, like you got to have a pretty solid gain stage for it to even stick around because there's so many people making them these days.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel that's one that like Behringer has a lot of good. Obviously they just clone things, so they have a lot of good ones that are pretty faithful to the real deals. But yeah, I remember that one being just awful.
Speaking of like so many makers, do you think the bubble's gonna burst eventually? We'll have, because like I don't know if we can have 900,000 tube screamers forever.
Well, it's one of those things. Like the only thing I feel like we can even equate it to would be like the microbrew market.
Yeah.
And it's like that's one thing. Like a lot of them tank for sure because so many people try it, but the ones that make it, there still seems to be enough room for all of them. So I feel like it's kind of like that with pedals. Like there's such a different market now, like in terms of music gear period. Because I feel like people used to mainly just buy the stuff to get through, like as a tool to generate their sound and to keep. Most of it ends up resulting out of trying to take studio effects on the road.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of guys just used it what they needed to get through, like MXR, Boss. Those are pedals that did the job and did them well for years and years. But now with all these people doing their own takes and versions of that, it's getting to the point that you can kind of eventually find the one for you. Like, yeah, there might be 50 Tube Screamer clones out there, but there's enough of a variance that eventually you'll find yours. So I think as long as they're good, they'll stick around. But no, it's one of those things I can only equate it to like the microbrew market. I think that's the only thing that strikes me as being similar. Maybe bicycle equipment. I don't know. I'm not in that side of things, but
yeah, it just seems like it always is getting bigger and bigger, and I just wonder like when's it gonna slow down? Like if anything, it feels like it's speeding up.
Yes, and particularly like pedals and like even like the digital side of
like the Maris guys, and
right?
Strymon,
Yeah, because I feel like those guys are really pushing the threshold even more. Honestly, like when you look at like what's going on with like the Ocean Machine and some of their more recent like more complex pedals, it's like they're starting to give those companies a run for their money in terms of bang for the buck features. So yeah, no, I think it's just one of those things. Like if you can make a good product, you can be in the game. But other than that, well, marketing, that's a huge part, obviously.
Yeah.
All right, next one is from Mermaid Ravioli. Best compliment that's ever been given to you after a show.
I feel like this is easy to think about because most of the time it's like, yo, great set, man. It's like, cool. I know you're outside having a smoke.
Right.
But we were talking about this earlier.
Or if you're like Ike, you just walk up and you say, I didn't catch any of that.
So for me, I think I'm pretty sure we were playing Pinball Jones in Fort Collins, but a dude came up to me after the show and he was like, bro, I heard every note you played. And like the more I thought about that, I was like, that's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. Like, because it told me like,
Well, they put no judgment on that either, too. Like, I heard every note that you play.
Yeah, exactly. And like people are always like, "Oh, I couldn't hear you, but I could hear the bass just fine." Like things like that. So it's like, so my mix
sonic critiques. Yeah,
and I didn't have too much gain, and like my delay wasn't going all crazy.
Right.
So like to me, the more I thought about that, I was just like, "What a guy!" Okay.
Yeah.
He made my night.
That's a good one. Yeah, I wonder if he plays or did play.
Yeah, he was a member of one of the other bands. So.
Well, that means even more because like if anybody's gonna have more like shit to throw at you in terms of critique, it would be somebody else that plays.
Yeah, because I feel like if you invite coworkers to a show, which I would not recommend, that doesn't always go over well. But it's always just like, wow, that was so loud.
I remember seeing like some of your some of your coworkers at one of the Ghoulie shows, and it was just so obvious like who they were versus everybody else that was there.
Some coworkers get it and they have a great time, and then some of them are like, "Do I need to dress up?" And I'm like, "Do you need to wear a vest and a Motorhead shirt?"
Like, if anything, you need to like dress down.
Yeah, it's like, don't wear your nicest pearls. This is a hole in the wall.
Yeah, just put like a t-shirt, jeans on, and just like fall down on your way to the show, and then
That's a good way to put it. Dress like it's your worst day. You'll fit right.
Yeah, I'd say that one guy, like after that show, we played. I was like, what, a year ago, 2 years ago?
Almost 2 years now.
Yeah.
I want to say.
Yeah, I was gonna say after we did that show, and the guy came up and said he was having a bad night, and after listening to us play it and proved his, like, to me that was like such a minor thing to. I guess for a lot of people that'd be a minor thing, but it's like even if we just made one dude have a better night that night, it was worth.
He was just a walk-in guy.
Yeah, it was just a good guy walking by and heard it on the street and just walked in. So, but yeah, no, that was probably one of the more meaningful ones, just because that was like a lot of hassle that night for something I wasn't sure.
Yeah, and
it was like after all of that, I was like, well, it was well worth it.
Yeah,
even if it was just like for that guy.
They don't owe you anything.
Right?
Like you didn't have to say that.
Right.
So yeah, no, that means a lot.
Yeah.
From the noobs.
Well, and the fact that he ran us down.
Yeah.
While we're loading the gear in, and he ran us down just to tell us that meant a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The next question has no correct answer. Bobby Baker asks, Les Paul, SG, and Explorer. You got to sell one, keep one, and break one. I guess this is like the...
This one's kind of actually a throwback. That's why I called him Bobby Baker, but it was a question from Robert Baker from our very first FAQ. But I figured this would be an interesting one for you because I wanted to see, because I feel like knowing you would want all of them. All three of those, if you just had the option. So.
It's, see, like the Explorer is, I don't know.
You're like, no, I don't want it.
I keep. So I feel like Explorer. I feel like I have to break because it's not going to catch as much money as like the Les Paul. Yeah. Okay. I have an answer. Okay. Now that I've done so. I think I have to break an Explorer just because they're really big. You got to buy special cases for them, and they're just not that common. Like I can't do anything with an Explorer that I can, or there's nothing I can do with an Explorer that I can't do with a Les Paul, in my opinion.
Yes.
Yeah.
To me, it's a cooler looking Les Paul.
Yes.
But yes. Yeah. But yes, that yeah.
I guess I'm gonna sell the Les Paul and keep the SG. I feel like if I had to have just one guitar. That's it. I would probably pick an SG just because, like, weight and bitiness. I've had 3 SGs at this point, and I feel like they're always excellent. So it's weird that I would pick I've had a Les Paul for 6 years now,
but you picked the one you don't.
I picked the one that I sold a couple times. Yeah, this is gonna. My wife can't see.
Reevaluating all your decisions of the last few years.
No, I do that all the time when I see something. I was like, why did I sell that? No.
Yeah. No, it's a tough one.
Yeah. I'm interested to hear what you're going to say because yours is going to be almost entirely different since you have.
Yeah, I was going to say I have an Explorer, but at the same time, you could always use more Explorers. Yeah. So maybe. I don't know. I would love to have an SG. I just feel like they would look cheesy on me. I feel like they're too small.
Yeah, you playing your mandolin.
Yeah, exactly. Like I feel like it'd be a little too small. So for me, I would probably, oddly, I think I would actually keep the SG though, because I don't have that. So I'd keep the SG. I think I'd break the Explorer, and then I'd sell the Les Paul and buy 2 Explorers.
I always feel like Explorers just get so pigeonholed and like that. It's got to be like shreddy, thrashy.
or something.
No, and I agree. I find it weird though, because like the first time anybody like would have been super acquainted with Explorers would have been like Clapton when he first broke off from Cream, and so it's like, to me, like, I feel like it's just as much of a blues guitar if you want it to be. Like, it can do the blues shit all day long. You just got to play it that way. But no, like, there's so many people. I used to mainly associate it, obviously, with Hetfield, but like as time goes on, like Dave Grohl, I always loved his, like the ebony one he had. And then I a lot of guys, like even like the Schenker brothers and all that. Like I love a lot of those Explorers, and I don't know, Explorers are just fun to me. They just remind me of a spaceship. I guess that's why I've always liked them.
But I guess in my head, I always associate the Flying V and the Explorer together. But like, you'll see blues guys playing Flying Vs all day long because of Albert King.
That is very true.
But you'll never see a blues guy playing an Explorer.
No, and that's a good point.
It's just unfit. It's
Well, because like the first time I remember being like really sold on the Explorer was like I'd always associated and wanted one because I liked Metallica and a lot of that stuff. But then when I actually did see this live footage of Clapton playing his, I was like, okay, so you can really do anything on an Explorer that you would do on a Les Paul. And that's when, like I said again, just to me it's a cooler, weirder looking Les Paul. Yeah, I agree. It is like the case is ridiculous.
It's
but
massive.
yeah, those cases are ridiculous.
Yeah. Banana headstocks all day.
Yes, yeah, I love that. Well, like I said, the profile of an Explorer, it just looks like a ship flying by.
Yeah. No, I agree. I'm just glad the mode Aaron didn't stick around.
Yeah. So the next one is check my bed, and the question is all the hype around the Chase Bliss automaton warranted? I don't think I spelled that right at all, but
that's okay. We hope so.
Yes. Yeah. We're also eagerly waiting to find out.
Yeah.
We've been back ordered from like January or whenever they announced them.
Yeah, it's at least 6 months now.
Yeah. So
as just like a guitar player, I personally look at that and say probably for the studio guys, but like not necessarily for me, because I don't picture myself bringing something like that to a show and needing such a different variety of gains that I'm like clicking through those. I can imagine somebody who's running a studio could like just buy one of those and sell all there.
That's what I was gonna say. At least I'm not super familiar with it. Like I'll be honest. Like I tend to not do a ton of like research on pedals until we get them in the shop. I mean, I like to know what they are obviously before they come in, but I don't like to do a lot of diving like with videos and stuff before we get them in here, because I feel like it skews my like perception of what it's going to be, and I like to generally not expect things going into it. But that's one I feel like I might be wrong. There's probably some guys that are going to use it out and about, but I feel like it's almost exclusively a studio piece in my head.
Yeah, that's how I think about it.
Yeah, because like to me it just seems like not only does it cost too much, but it just does not seem like the kind of thing you would mess with very much on the fly. And like when you're playing shows, like it doesn't seem like something you're gonna run over to and easily be able to, navigate like in the middle, like on a dark stage trying to deal with that.
I can't imagine throwing that in the back of a van.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
What is the price point? I don't even know.
I think they're at least 800 to 1,000 or something like. Yeah. So I think they're at least 8.
Studio guys.
Yeah, no, to me it seems like a great studio piece, and like even guys that are like home producers or home, like we even have a few guys at shop here that do like horror movie soundtracks and stuff. So it's like I could totally see it for something where you just need to cover a wide array of things in a studio setting.
Yeah.
But yeah, on the road I can't see it being a thing. I'm
it
sure it
seems like another thing to break.
Yeah, and it seems like a really expensive, like like 801 pedal or something. Just kind of spendy.
Cool.
All right, last question.
From Kalen 4225, why does amp modeling get a lot of flack? So like modeling amps, but Ampless Pedalboards do not, like a pedal board that's got an iridium or something like that on it.
Yeah, I mean, this is something like I feel like the gap on this is closing, but I still find it weird like how much Kempers get like a lot of people give people a hard time for having a Kemper.
Yeah.
As if they're like basically running around with a computer or something, and it's like, yeah. But at the same time, like with what that does, there's certain people, like you really can't deny that covers a huge amount of territory, and for some people that's literally all they need.
Yeah.
So it's like you could buy that and basically have access to hundreds of multi-$1,000 amps once you load it up with IRs, rather than actually having to own all of those amps. At the same day, like I think it's one of those things though, like the tube guitar market or the tube amp guitar crowd is so, purist when it comes to that like they got to make everybody else feel bad for not using, like, it's one of those things, like we're very locked into it, but the Iridium I think is just one of those things because it's a pedal trying to be an amp and not an amp trying to be another amp.
Yeah.
I think that's part of where that comes from, maybe.
Yeah, but I feel like when there's no shortage of guitar forums and stuff online of guys debating the difference between a 59 Les Paul and a 60 Les Paul, and my first question is like, well, have you played them? Because yeah, they're bad demos and stuff out there, but I also feel like people go into stores and it's like, I tried it out and I couldn't figure it out in 2 minutes, so it's bad amp or something like that. Right. I feel like you're just setting yourself up for failure if you're not going to experiment a little bit. But things have also improved. Like I had a Line 6 Spider 3 in 2005.
Yeah, no, me too. It was my first practice amp too.
And things have improved a lot since then. And I don't think
maybe not Line 6, but
yeah. I guess I don't know.
No, they have with the Helix stuff.
Yeah, well, I guess.
No, they've come a long way too.
But like I don't know if people just write it off in their head as like there's no way that could be good because I played a Spider 3 in 2005 and it was trash. Rightfully so. Well,
no, I think you're on. Like that's, to me, that feeds into like the same thing of like why people don't give Boss pedals that big of a try, or they continue to have sort of a bad rep. Because I think so many people played Boss pedals through like shitty amps back when they were first starting that it just gets stuck in your head that that's a bad sound. Like whereas if you plug a Boss pedal into a nice setup, like most of them sound solid. So it's like if it was good enough for Prince and all those guys back then, it's like it's solid for most people.
Yeah, no, I definitely. And there's just like I didn't know how to set a DS1 when I was 14 either. Right. I'm sure I just why does it sound bad? Right. So I think people just like don't get their own experience enough. Which, not to say like the whole YouTube cult is bad.
Well, no, that's part of kind of even what you were saying, like with the Les Paul, like the 59 versus the 60. I feel like a lot of people, if they haven't played certain things, they think their way to the nth degree, trying to convince themselves that they're going to like the the older one or whatever it is, like rather than really just taking into account how they feel about it when they personally play it. Because like you could think all day that something's going to be the right thing for you, and then you play it and it's not. Because like to me, like the Zabracadabra was a perfect example. That was one of the first pedals, like when I met Ike for the very first time. That was one of the very first ones I tried. I remember I tried it in practice with you and Connor, and I was like so disappointed but at the time I didn't know exactly what I was doing with it, and I would now I would totally use it in a different way. But it was one of those things where like it sounds good, but it didn't sound good for me. And like just going back to the Naga Viper into an amp that's already breaking up a bit was closer to what I was actually after.
Yeah. Well, and I struggle with that so much when I like hear other guitar players play something. I'm like, it sounds so good, and then I hold the same rig and I'm like, I hate it. It's terrible.
It's really tough because especially if you get like almost dead set or like you really fall in love with somebody else's tone for a bit, and then you try to like kind of get those things assembled. Even like you said, even if you get to play into the actual rig, like and you can't get it to do.
Oh, come on, Zig.
There's Ziggy, in case you guys didn't hear him earlier.
He's been on the floor the whole time.
He's protecting us from interlopers.
Yes, those evildoers outside walking through a park.
Yeah, they're always trying to mess up YouTube videos.
Yeah, how evil. I think that there's a lot of, I'm supposed to like this sort of thing, which I've definitely battled off a lot. I remember trying like a Line 6 DL4 or something like that. And they're like, you like stoner metal music? This is the delay. And it was like, no.
Yeah, no, that one was another one. Like even Nico and I were talking about that one the other day. It's like it's a delay flavored delay. Like it's very, it does the job, but it's like it's kind of like if you told a computer like your ideal of a delay, like that's pretty much what it does. Where it doesn't have a lot of character, and I feel like the more we mess with all this stuff, the more I want the stuff that has a lot of character. Like it might not do a million things, but it doesn't sound like anything else.
Yeah,
and like those are the ones that pop out to me.
That just looking at the Callan-bred stuff, it's funny that you said the Sabracadabra was the disappointment, because for me it was the Cats at Koenig, because is.
Oh, yeah,
Like
yeah,
the-
okay.
I'm always like, oh, fuzz and distortion. Like, I love that in between there.
Yeah.
And I remember turning that on and being like, it's too noisy. It's too loud.
Yeah.
This is not at all what I thought I was getting.
Well, it was weird because like at first I let like my impression of the Zebra, like I let that kind of influence my perception of cattle inbred for a little bit. But then like as soon as I played the Naga Viper, as soon as I played like even honestly I love the Galileo. Like if you're into that Brian May kind of tone, like I love that one. The Belt Epic or Epoch.
Oh,
Yeah, it's like those are amazing. So it was like one of those things where that particular one didn't work for me, but the rest are great. So.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Ziggy.
Come on, dude. Pull it
He's
together.
had a long day and he's consistently inconsistent.
Yes. I don't know. I'd give him like a B for today. He wasn't terrible.
Yeah, once everybody got in, he was good. So yeah, I'd say like, he got a B. Got an A- last week, which was up from like a C average. So we had pretty high expectations.
We had like
for
a
him
C
this week.
minus 4 weeks ago or something.
Yeah.
Oh,
There we go. All right, we'll end on
B
that
minus.
one. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for joining us. Hit that subscribe button and press the like button too.
That's a good one. All right.
Yeah. Okay.
Catch you guys on the flip side.